to everyone participating. So about a few housekeeping rules about our meetup. So as you heard, we are recording the meetup. So in case you don't want to be recorded, please feel free to turn off your camera. Otherwise, we encourage you to keep it open. We are not a big group, so it's really great if we can see each other and interact. But for the time being, especially during the presentation of our guest speakers, please mute your microphone and activate your chat. Your chat in order to really provide your comment, your questions. As usual, our meetup are very interactive, so it's really good to hear your views and simple comments. Of course, so I will start immediately, Roberto, sharing the slide and sharing the agenda for today. So let me, in the meantime, while the slides are loaded, let me say that today we focus on well-being and inclusion. So our club is about the use of artificial intelligence in teaching and learning. And we know that this is something very important and something that is happening in the classroom. So, but today we want to really try to understand better the correlation between AI, the use of AI in classroom, for example, and well-being and inclusion. For this, we have, as you can see from the agenda, we have two guest speakers. The first one is Christina Costa from Durham University, UK. I will have give you more information about Christina afterward. And here we will focus in her intervention. We will examine well-being in digital education and AI through a lens of mutual understanding and recognition, self-worth, self-recognition. So this is an important lens and it's an important factor for well-being. Then we have a discussion where my colleague Fabio Nascimbeni and myself, we will address questions that we collected because we announced this meetup and we received already some questions, plus other questions that we might receive or we want to address to you, Christina, based on your presentation. Then we have a second guest speaker. And the guest speaker is, so in the second intervention, we try to look to practices. So in relation to well-being and inclusion, using digital education and AI, let's see what we can do to have a positive correlation in this respect. And then we have a conclusion with some remarks and the homework, as usual, for the participants. So let's go to the next slide, where I just want to, before passing the floor to you, Christina, I would like really to start, let's say, giving some information. If we can go to the second slide, Roberto. Thank you. So last week I had the opportunity to really assist to a presentation related to the uptake of artificial intelligence in education and training. Roberto, can you please put the slide on?
Yes, one moment.
Okay, so, and it's quite impressive how, let's say, the uptake. This is an international survey that has been undertaken. And so it's quite a really, well, I can anticipate that basically in, if we go to slide 3, please. Okay. Okay, this is just to highlight that basically this is from the world largest international student experience survey that show a really stronger uptake. In general, a positive sentiment about students using AI. So, in a nutshell, we can see that, for example, in North America, in Europe, almost 70% of the students are at least on weekly basis using AI in their study. And what was impressive to me is that 94% of these international students feel AI has a positively enhancement in their learning experience. So this is really impressive. And this is the QR code to get access to the full report. Let's go to the next slide. But actually, what we know about the impact of AI on inclusion and well-being, it's very questionable. Or we have little knowledge, we have research. Here in this slide, I wanted just to highlight how complex, I would say, is the concept of well-being. I found that this definition, it's the balance point between an individual resource pool and the challenges faced. If we manage to be in this balance point, then we are okay, in terms of well-being, of cognitive well-being. So in terms of engagement and motivation, in terms of psychological well-being, self-worth, autonomy, physical well-being or safety, and also in terms of social inclusion. As human beings, we want to be connected and we enjoy the relation in our learning. But it's clear that it's very much individual. What is good for me might be not good for another person, and the point of balance might be different for each one. So it's a really complex issue. So to understand better this, I'm now going to invite Dr. Cristina Costa, as I said, Associate Professor at Durham University in UK. And it's very important the work the researcher that is undertaking is exactly on this topic because she's currently working on a series of empirical and conceptual projects focused on critical exploration of digital well-being and generative AI in education. So I would really like to welcome Cristina Costa, and I would pass the floor to you to be a bit more critical and to encourage you to have a more deeper reflection and understanding of what is good for sure, but what it might generate some concern. So Cristina Costa, I hope you can start sharing your screen and start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. That's I think I'm sharing the right one. Let me see. I'm not sure I'm sharing. And
okay, for the time being, I see the you.
are you seeing me, but you're not seeing any screen, are you?
Not for the time being.
Not sure what's going on here. I'm going to send you my slides in case I cannot, and I can start anyway. And then if you could upload them for me, because I'm not sure why.
Just to try to quickly solve, do you, what the technical issue is?
The technical issue now is that I don't see. Oh, wait, here.
Are you,
okay. I think I know what it is. The problem is a new computer.
Okay.
I think I can. It's not allowing me.
If you prefer, you can send them to me and I will share it.
Wait, just give me a second. I think it might happen now.
No problem, take your time.
Sorry about this. I think this is telling me to leave the meeting again, but I'm gonna try to share now.
Okay.
Let me see. So, okay. I think it's sharing now, isn't it?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay.
If you go in slide mode, presentation mode, this is perfect.
Okay, brilliant. Sorry about this, but Alessandro's comments were a really good segue to what I want to talk about. So thank you everyone for enduring me, and please let me know when you want me to shut up because I can speak. So I want to talk today a bit about.
Well, you have 10, 15 minutes.
Wait, can you see the slides? I cannot see them.
You cannot see the slides?
We saw the slide for a moment, but
then when you moved into presentation mode, they disappeared.
Oh.
So maybe just keep them in a normal mode, make them bigger.
Indeed.
Okay. Can you see them?
No. We see you and the fantastic
woman,
but
okay, let me share again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, we'll just keep it like that.
Let's
the slide
keep it like
is
that.
just to, okay, so thank you so much. And I wanted to talk today a little bit more about a critical take, and some of these things are work in progress, is also about some empirical work that we just finished and submitted for publication. So some of these things, any comments that you have will be very welcoming. But I'm trying to figure out first, digital well-being in overall to move away from a more psychological trap in which we are, and rightly so, thinking about digital detoxes and screen times and all of that to alleviate the burden of digital communication, especially on children. But for me, that is just a fix. It's not really sorting out the problem at its core. And therefore, I'm looking at a more kind of intersubjective way, especially because I think one of the key aspects with well-being online is we've lost a bit the art of communication, and that has had an impact on people's self-worth. And that is one of the key issues, I argue, that affects well-being in digital engagement. But also AI now, as Alessandro was saying, there's a lot of talk around how students are enjoying it, saying that it's kind of alleviating them. But my claim here is that those feelings of kind of well-being are very superficial and not delivering anything concrete to intellectualization, to the educational purpose. So I think I will start by acknowledging the elephant in the room, which is GenAI. It is a great achievement for computer science. There's no doubt about that, and I think we all need, should agree on this. Turing would be proud. But it is, I'm not so sure it has the same effect for education, and definitely not for day-to-day life, citizenry. I'm not sure he has that effect, especially in current times of misinformation, fake news, and manipulation of discourse. So this overflowing enthusiasm, I think it would be useful to tame it a bit, because although the technology is impressive, the effect can be scary. And for education, that is important because the debates over efficiency and productivity deliver and reflect a performative educational system that we know is impinging on people's well-being and mental health. And that goes both for teachers as well as for students. So we're kind of in a loop of education that all that matters is the outcome, is the certificate, is the test. We have PISA tests to all that. We're kind of in a craze of testing and retesting to show how good we are. And we're losing a bit of the essence of education, which is more in the process and the practices that are associated with the act of learning. So that is, for me, something that we need to reflect a bit more before jumping to conclusions, that GenAI is being so great to alleviate people's hardships. So for me, conceptually, and we're starting to also observe this empirically now, there's a possible detachment from intellectual responsibility, especially when we operate in a performative system. So when we are teaching or demanding that students perform to the test, that they perform to a certain very measurable outcome, we are yielding to the seductive powers of this GenAI, because it's really a machine of answers, and especially, you know, the GenAI that I'm talking about here is the large language modules that are now very popular within our student body, and those seductive powers, even for those that might have some ethical concerns, are very hard to overcome when you're placed in competition. So it's delivering to this, what is an ongoing crisis of curriculum, in which we are not really catering so much for the thinking process, but more concerned with the outcome. And obviously the outcome does not happen without the thinking, but GenAI can give the illusion that it does, because it does provide answers. So we have to question if these technologies are really freeing us to be more intellectual, more smarter, or are they really creating liberations that are permissive of not really of letting go? So is it freeing us from thinking and from doing the hard intellectual labor, which it is it comes with its constraints. It's not necessarily something that is always pacific. There is not always something that is done in a painless way. And I think we need to acknowledge that, instead of just looking at what people might prefer or report what is working for them, because at this stage, and especially from a critical paradigm, sometimes what is working for them might be what people want to work for them, and not necessarily the long-term effects of what education should be, which is to allow us to think independently, and not with the support of algorithmic kind of architecture of how the information should be provided to certain groups. So in this case, the link between GenAI and well-being, is important to inquire from a critical perspective, to understand of what GenAI does, what type of power does it relinquish, what power does it give, but also how it disempowers people. And empirically, we have now started to look into this, and because we've been looking into systems that are still attached mostly through a curriculum of transmission or product, which might include a bit of process, but is still very focused on the product, which might be a score, a grade, a certificate. And what we're seeing is, yes, at the kind of the shallow level, you might say that does improve a bit of people's well-being, of how they might feel about themselves, but in the deeper level, as not really improving their sense of self-worth. But what it's doing is soothing difficulty, because learning that is learning needs to have a certain degree of difficulty, because otherwise you're not learning, right? So it does reduce the discomfort of learning when you're able to get ready-made answers that you then have to display as your own knowledge. So you're not working for that aspect. So, and we know from theory, and especially Mezirov, but also Paulo Freire, that that kind of amount of discomfort sometimes is key as a catalyst of the light bulb moment. We have to go through the processes of making sense of things to be able to make sense of that. And that it can be discomfort, but we shouldn't really conflate this with well-being. So many times what I'm seeing in this type of reports is we're reporting about what are people's preferences, what suits people at this point, because obviously they do want to get to that score and they do want to get that certificate. And if they're going to play to that game, then why not have it easier? It's the same thing. If you want to go to the gym, if you want to get fit, you might have to do the jogging. But if you get a scooter, you get there quicker from A to B, but you're not necessarily exercising your muscles. So this is a bit what Gen AI can do. We need to think about, is all that is choice and soothing key to our learners. So Gen AI, my argument here is that it does fragment the learning process because the technical ability of Gen AI enables the separation of knowledge production from the activity of knowing. So you don't necessarily have to now think about all these ideas that you're exposed to, because Gen AI can produce the narrative that you can then own it as your own knowledge. And so my argument here is that it will start, and we're still at the very early stages of seeing this, but we'll start leaving people in charge of the knowing, of the learning, which is the learners, with a meaningless task. And we're seeing that, for example, in academia, where and even in schools, where the level of absenteeism is higher than ever before. People still want their degrees, but they're not necessarily taking part in the classes. So this separation is a problem, because human beings are deep-seated, have a deep-seated need of meaningfulness in everything they do. And I especially think with the younger generations, they are demanding far more that everything they do have some meaning. So I've now resorted to start working with a framework on mutual recognition that has been developed by Axel Honneth, that talks about 3 spheres in which people can self-fulfill, and that's forms of self-fulfillment then kind of inform our well-being. So he talks about the sphere of care or love, if you will, in which people work, with each other for the benefit of that person. And here, I think what's also very important is that the narrative that comes out of Gen AI is that allows to personalize, but learning. It allows to deliver to the individual needs. But what it does, it individualizes. So personalization here is not really a good word to associate with Gen AI, because it individualizes. And we know the more individualized, the more isolated people are, the more likely they have to impact on their well-being. So what we want here is that with the aspect of care, where the individual surfaces as a learning being, is that we can humanize that experience for the human being. And that is a way to also then develop self-confidence. Regulation of AI, European Union has been invested in that, as has the UK and major states, but they're still very from a technical and functionalist perspective. We need to regulate in how people can participate in these technologies in a way that they can extract meaning, so that they can also have self-respect, so that they can also associate that their learning with their own work and not with some machine. And then the third aspect here is how, solidarity. And one of the things that education is more and more the pride of is the solidarity aspect, because we have gone through a more kind of individualized path of competition. And so we need to also think about how can we create collective practices as a way to improve learner self-esteem. So with that in mind, what I'm kind of, talking about here is that we need a major change. And this actually, for me, is the opportunity. I think Gen AI creates a very tangible and very visible opportunity to rethink curriculum. One that is not really focused on a competitive edge, but rather that looks at how we can foster autonomy. So a curriculum that is not focused on transmission, that is not focused on process, on product, is probably more focused on process, but is definitely focused on praxis. And what I mean here by praxis is how we kind of connect ideas with real world practice. And I think this is something that I know some curricula does that, but in the mainstream, more performative educational sector, that's not necessarily given. So here we have an opportunity to really root our teaching practices in praxis, so that we can give meaning to people and that they can see an opportunity to flourish.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm kind of over my time, but so I'm just
well,
going
if
to...
you can just close in a couple of minutes,
yeah.
just to key messages. Okay.
So this for me are the key messages for, and I'm also developing a paper just now on curriculum principles for Gen I to overcome these technical and kind of performative aspects. So the hopes that can emerge from this crisis that we're all kind of contending ourselves with. I had the fortunate of not teaching this academic year, but what I'm hearing from my colleagues is that most of the essays are coming back, and I've heard from colleagues from all over the world, is Gen I, people are using Gen I and all that. So there's that for me screams a crisis that needs to be addressed, to move us into a space where learners and teachers can find meaning in their work. And that for me is through the emergence of cultures of learning that can recognize the learning individual as an active citizen. So not someone that's just there to replicate what they've learned, but really to create, to provide meaningful experience for them. Also, I think the role of theory has never been more important than now. I always tell my students, wouldn't have been democracy if we hadn't had theory. We have to have ideas to move forward, and we cannot relegate that to the machine. So the theory needs to gain prominence, but through applicability to practice. We need to stop having theory for theory's sake. And this is an opportunity to develop critical principles that really promote intellectual empowerment and celebrate intellectual labor. And I think we don't do that enough when we are just relying on scores. The process is lost into that. And so it's very easy then for us to be seduced by the technology that is, can override that process and give us answers. And that also comes with participation in learning that is recognized and worthwhile as a dignified activity, so that people can find a reason to return to the educational experience. So I'll stop here. I hope this has been thought-provoking and hopefully generate some discussion.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Cristina. It is thought-provoking, definitely. So we are running a bit later, but I think it was very interesting. So let us address you some questions. I don't know, Fabio, if you want to start or I start first. In the meantime, what I capture is really much connected also to the cognitive well-being of students. Was mentioned the self-control, the self-worth. So if you have a question thinking to your classroom, to your specific situation, please write in the chat or raise your hand. In the meantime, Fabio, would you like to start addressing a question?
Yes, well, thank you very much actually for the presentation. I think that's exactly precisely what we need in the reflection now. So my question has to do with the concept of personalization versus participation, sort of, which you didn't spell out this way, but I think is more or less in under the ground there, because personalization is often used as as one of the reasons why we should adopt AI, but technology-based personalization, as in the good old time of learning analytics, it could become something that is at the end of the day hindering participation, or at least hindering real participation, if I can use a non-academic word. So typically when we look at well-being, as Alessandro was mentioning before, we look at things that are creating problems for teachers or learners. Whilst in this case, it's not creating a problem, it's maybe changing a bit the dynamic. So I would like to ask you, can you criticize a bit the concept of personalization on our behalf?
Yes. I think what Gen I does, just to start there, is showing up the problem. that we've had for a long time. The aspect of personalization has come from tech companies that have been modeling what they can do in education to their commercial interests. And all of these ideas many times come from commercial enterprises. So, for example, you are scrolling to your Instagram and you start looking at cats, very sweet cats, and the algorithm starts to see that you like that and starts giving you more. That's a form of personalization. The same thing is if you start buying things on Amazon or any other kind of big online companies, it starts to kind of give you suggestions on products, sometimes even tethering from the technology of other people around you. And what that does is personalizes and gives you almost the impression that you have a concierge at your disposal. I argue that this does not work in education, because learning is a kind of inherently a collective approach. Is dialogue both with oneself and others, if you want to use a Freirean perspective. And what we have lost a long time ago in education is the solidaristic aspect of education, because of how it became so competitive. So now we have to get the better score to get into the the key university, what we want to do, and we're losing all of that. And so then we're not giving as much attention to the collaborative aspects, to the solidarity aspects where we learn with each other. And you'll notice that the further you go into the system, so the higher the kind of the educational, so you will lose more and more the solidarity aspect of education. So when you get to 12th grade, 13th grade, if you're in Germany, focusing on exams for university, the more individual the more isolated the individual becomes to deliver to that outcome. And so these are the rhetorics that are also being associated with Gen I, but they're being given as a positive thing because we have also become a very individualistic society. But that is at the core problem of well-being to start with, is this lack of community. So I don't know if to just round this up, I think the personalization aspect of technology and the rhetoric around it is a very neoliberal, marketized way to sell technology that then, filters through how schools position themselves as cutting edge, innovative, but that doesn't deliver to the citizenship goals of people working together. And I think this is a big danger.
So perhaps I can have also a question for you, and then we start reading the chat. So please keep writing your question and observation. So as you said, Christina is impressive and has to be also a bit scary. But this is a club of teachers. So assuming I am a teacher, and given the figures that we have around about the use by students and teachers, I was in Helsinki for a couple of months recently for an applied research, and even the teachers are heavily using. Yes, for personalization, I would say mainly, but not only. So if I am a teacher, Christina, and so I have to use generative AI in my design of the lesson and delivery of the lesson. So what should I do in order to have, let's say, the use of AI in a positive correlation, for example, with self-confidence, in terms of liberation of my intellectual capacity, not standardization, in terms of self-worth? Okay, this is the first part. So thinking to one student, but also to the collective, to the classroom, to the collective intelligence. So this is the first question. But the second one is also about how to ensure that in the end, the relation between teachers and the other students for collective intelligence, group intelligence, it's somehow positively affected by the use of generative AI in my classroom.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I don't have a straightforward answer for that. But what I will say is I don't think Gen AI provides collective intelligence. It provides algorithm intelligence. And now we're still seeing, the most used one in Europe is probably ChatGPT, followed closely by Copilot, and right now they're still pretty much leaning in the center. These things will change as people take over these companies, and we know that Musk has made already bids towards ChatGPT, and I can only speculate why. So we're feeding the algorithm, and the algorithm is learning and relearning, and is giving you a certain set of answers. So I'm not saying, we're not really inside a community when it's a one-to-one, and you're kind of, and I think one of the things that is important for teachers to understand is that you are defaulting to the algorithm, to what the algorithm is programmed to do, and it can answer. The straight answers, it does very well, but it is also in a way stalling a bit of the plurality of thinking. So the diversity of thinking can be stalled by that, because at some point the system will have kind of, in a way, it's almost like this snowball effect. It gets to a way that will be slower at it becomes so big that it starts to kind of, in a way, repeating its own ideas. It doesn't. It's not a creative machine. It repeats what it collates. So what I think here is, when people understand that, then they positively can use it for simple tasks of information gathering, but then they need to be creative of how that is going to impact deeper knowledge and deeper learning and deeper engagement. And so that is, for me, is where curriculum principles come in, and we have to change the dynamics of our classrooms to not just be teaching to the handbook or to a certain text, but we need to probably be more clever in terms of thinking, how do we explore the questions that we want to explore with our students in creative ways that Gen I doesn't not just reply exactly what they need to know, because it's not just what we know, is how we got there, so that we add meaning to what we've done. And so I think there's a creative process, and that is quite exciting, because allows teachers to be more creative. And I do hope that these things, also from an European Union and Commission perspective, that this becomes part of the kind of projects that start to come out now, in terms of how we're going to engage in curriculum imagination and in curriculum design in creative ways. So that for me is a positive aspect, is how we can think in those ways. I'm not sure what was the other question. Sorry.
Well, the other one, very quickly, because it was as a teacher again with my classes. How can I use AI for collective intelligence to foster? Because this is the way we were used to build new ideas, to understand, to learn, and to enjoy learning. No, we have gone to school also for this reason. We could find different places to learn, but we want to go to school because there are the other students. So there is a social and a relation dimension. So can AI also somehow support a teacher in this respect, in group working, and positively stimulate the collective intelligence, the development of a collective intelligence?
Group work, I think, AI is going to seep into a lot of technologies and on other platforms, and it's already there. It was already there even before ChatGPT. It's just that we didn't realize it was, but it's now going to be infiltrated in other aspects. I think for me is, I'm not sure in which ways he can. I'm sure he will, as part of technologies to create to enable people to come together, and already but how this is going to take shape, it depends on the tools that are going to be developed for that purpose. I think collective work again is about curriculum imagination of how people come together, and I think I don't think we need to automate that. I would say that's a human aspect that I would be very resistant to automate.
To keep it for humans.
Yes.
Okay. Fabio, do you have a very quick questions to address?
Oh, I think let's go forward. We might then call back Christina close to the end, but I think for now it would be interesting to see how these reflections resonate over the practice by Elena, because at the end of the day, as you rightly said, this is all super important. It comes, let's say, the day after tomorrow, but teachers have to deal with it today. So there is this time span, which is always a bit, problematic. So thank you very much, Christina. Very
Thank
interesting.
you.
Yes,
There was
just
also a question by Shaheen.
indeed.
That I think it's interesting, and some way we have touched this aspect in the previous questions. But Shaheen would like to know if there is a role of artificial intelligence in fostering not only the cognitive engagement, but also the dimensions, the emotional and social dimensions of engagement that can contribute to students' well-being and mutual recognition, in particular in diverse or multicultural digital learning environments. So if I well understand, this is about covering also not only knowledge aspect, cognitive aspects, but also the emotional and the social perspective. So if Christina has a couple of minutes to try to answer this
very
difficult question, I would say.
Do you want me to pick this up now or wait after the second?
No,
session?
do it right now, because we have
I
a full
think
agenda.
again, this goes back to my presentation that I think there's artificial understandings of well-being being provided by AI, and actually people will now start taking advantage again as a commercial ventures of how AI could be used as counselors. And we've seen a case where AI actually went AWOL and told the individual that was looking for advice to commit suicide. So I think there's this idea, and especially it speaks to the increased levels of isolation that some individuals have, where you can give the appearance that you're talking to someone, and you can you can try it on ChatGPT to ask for advice, and they will give you advice. And so that it can generate that kind of, because it's a chatbot, it can generate that idea that, and that alleviates social isolation and seclusion. It might give you an opportunity, because that's the thing is we need other people. We are human beings, social beings. We need other people. And when we don't have that, then technology can come. But that is a bit superficial, because it's as I say in one of the papers, AI does not communicate, it transmits. Someone that communicates doesn't just respond to your questions, it is interested, is invested in you. It also generates questions, and maybe one point will be there with GenAI, but it's still not the same thing. We're losing the human touch. So right now I don't really have any evidence to give you a straight answer, but I think it's danger to default to all these things. But you see how the increase of poor well-being across Europe and across the world, and the lack of counseling and counselors will create ventures where GenAI can be harnessed for this. And I would be very suspicious of then using that, especially with everyone, but especially with vulnerable people that would want to have that as a way to increase their well-being. So I'll stop here because I'm robbing time from someone else.
I have to move ahead with the second part of the agenda, but thank you very much, Christina. We are a small community, but I hope very much that you are going to share, with our community your next research in this respect. So because it's impressive, It's something that is very present, and we need to really the research to guide a bit how this is happening. For sure, it's disruptive. The fact that you mentioned, for example, that this was in a positive tone, that this could call for a review of the curricula. So it's changing the content of what we have to learn and how we have to learn this, but we are still struggling to find this tension that you mentioned with the question from Fabio about the personalization and liberalization, for example. But it's really calling for a revision of what we have to learn and how we are going to assess the students, because the world of work, for sure, is full of AI. The social life is full of AI. So it's really important that we reflect also on the curricular dimension. So, Cristina, you are on board in this club, so please share your research through us, and we have some channel as well, and within international community. So thank you for sharing. And so I'll move ahead now. As usual, we look to the academic research lens. We focus on well-being today. And now I would like to pass the floor to Tatiana to introduce the second guest speaker. So, Tatiana, are you here? Let me see. Otherwise, I proceed on my own. So, the second speaker of today is Elena Senel. Hello, Elena, and
Hello.
welcome. Elena is, we had a quick meeting, online meeting before inviting Elena today. And she's the CEO of Teams in AI. It's very energetic and it's going to present some of the initiatives. The title is From Inspiration to Impact. Okay, so how project-based AI learning tools, inclusion, and well-being. So here we take a lens a bit more positive, no? And we try to convince Elena, the participant, that so we can shape and use in our classroom AI also to full inclusion and well-being. So the floor is yours, Elena. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Christina, for this really informative talk as well. So I definitely learned a lot, and I'll be following up and on your research as well, because it's super interesting and it kind of a great segue into what I'll be talking about as well. So I'm going to try to share my screen, hopefully without any issues. Just tell me if you can see my screen at all.
Yes.
Move into slideshow. Can you see?
And
Yeah.
even we go in the
Amazing.
slideshow.
It works.
Perfect. Yes. So I'll be in slideshare mode. If anything, if you can't hear me for whatever reason, just let me know. So I know I named it project-based AI learning fuels inclusion and well-being, and then I changed it to problem-based, and that's because I realized that there are certain approaches to project-based learning where maybe it's not exactly clear that when we inspire young people, we focus on real problems and just not as a project, as a maybe happening. But just to thank everyone for being here on the call today. I am Elena Senel, the founder of Teens and AI. We have been working in this space since 2014. I think 2015 was our very first project that we ran here in London. It's called a hackathon, or it was called a hackathon. We recently renamed it into Tech-a-thons to make it a bit more accessible for teachers, because we were told hackathons are perceived in a bit of a negative way because of the word hacking. But really, hackathons are just a problem-solving activity using technology. in a really fast way. That's why there is a word thon, and it stems from marathon. So that's kind of how we started. And I, at that time, had no idea that there were some deeper problems we were also tackling as a social impact. We launched back in 2018 as Teens in AI, because back in those times, we just started talking about AI, and it felt like the voices of young people were missing from these conversations. And we kind of thought, how can we bring AI literacy, AI awareness, AI ethics awareness to the young people so that they understand the world they're living in, and they also have a chance to shape it, and hopefully in a positive way. So since 2015, the very first project we ran here in London with only 60 children, we've now reached, I think it's about 25,000 young people in about 97 countries around the world. But I know our latest campaign managed to reach something like 124 million people from all over the world through media and social media as well, to kind of, again, to allude to the fact that young people are interested not only in Gen AI, but in different types of AIs, and AI literacy that we speak of is not really strictly related to generative AI. We talk about AI ethics, we talk about power, we talk about responsibility, and we teach some of the most foundational AI stack, not only Python, but also, some of the Google stack that we stick with, open source tools. But very much focused on the responsibility as an aspect and as a foundation for everything we do. And we always say you can just code and build Python, learn how to use Python, but you can also build Python for something impactful. So there is a big difference to just learning how to code and learning how to code using your skills to build something that makes a difference to the world. And that's kind of what we're more about. We're very diverse as a team. We have team members in parts of Africa, parts of UK, parts of Europe. We have, I think, 150 ambassadors all over the world. Many of them are teachers because they realize this is a great way to bring AI into their classes and conversations around what's happening in the world of tech. So the impact so far, just to share that, we are in lots of countries, lots of teenagers are learning. Some of the countries that were mentioned here, we've got teenagers learning in those countries. And of course, like I said, lots of ambassadors leading on our work because I cannot possibly do it all by myself. Many kids come from ordinary state schools, something we're proud of. And as a female leader, I'm also very passionate about diversity. So we have a lot of girls who join our programs. And I think some of the latest programs we've run, definitely over 55% were female. But we're also very neurodiverse friendly. We're all diversity friendly. So we have a lot of boys and girls who come from ethnic minority backgrounds, Black communities. We are very active in parts of Africa, Middle East, and Asia, even Central Asia. So it's quite a big endeavor and movement to lead on, and I'm very, very proud of some of the impacts that we have achieved. But the challenge we're facing, of course, as Christina mentioned as well, there is that well-being gap, but there is also for us, it's an inclusion gap. So we only have 22% of global AI roles that are occupied by women, by females, which is quite sad to see this ongoing, particularly in Europe and in the West, in US as well. AI systems often include marginalized users or those who are really underrepresented in tech and AI in particular. And what happens then is the AI systems are programmed by white men in Silicon Valley, using or stealing data, which is, they say it's licensed or open source, but really it's not. So all of the images, pictures, videos you're putting outside on YouTube, all of this data is being trained quite legally by all of these big AI systems, whether it's ChatGPT and Anthropic and whatnot. They are not accountable for the actions they do because the regulation is lagging back. But ultimately, they're also, not including some of the voices that should be represented. And so we end up with technologies like facial recognition systems that don't recognize darker skin tones, and just because they were trained on data set of white people. And of course, many students also don't see themselves as tech people. Even my own daughter 10 years ago was told, oh, computer science is for boys, it's not really for girls. Fortunately, I managed to convert my daughter into tech and AI, and she's right now an apprentice at IBM working in an AI lab. But of course, we always see tech as very inclusive, as there are many jobs in tech. You don't have to be technical to actually join the tech industry these days. And at the same time, as already has been spoken, we have this well-being gap. 1 in 5 teens in Europe has a mental disorder. That's a WHO quote. 65% of girls report anxiety linked to tech. So it was a research from European Union that I uncovered. And of course, there is this social media overuse, which leads to lower life satisfaction. Lots of mental health problems reported here in the UK and all over Europe. A lot of depression, suicides, and of course, as parents, I've got 2 children as well. We're all quite concerned as to what's really happening in the world of tech. How come, the big tech companies are benefiting and profiting from the use of this technology, and we're kind of trying to push as much of this onto our children, which is not resulting in anything positive as we see it. So when I founded Teens and AI, of course, I had no idea that there were other issues to solve, because when I was solving the problem, I thought I was just bringing young people together and getting them to learn and understand what AI is and what can be done with it. And I always would say you can do some terrible things, bad things, like you can develop a facial recognition or a surveillance system that could be perpetuating human rights abuse, but you could also be using this for something very purposeful. And then, of course, what we're seeing these days is a lot of passive scrolling happening. And what we're hoping we can do through the interventions that we run is to get those passive scrollers into active builders and something they could build for something very purposeful that makes a difference to the world. So the learning framework that we developed, and I'm, by the way, not a teacher, I don't have any pedagogical background. I was just a mom who was frustrated that my daughter was told she can't do computer science. So I turned it into an enterprise. So I had to learn about these pedagogical approaches. And I found, particularly when kids come to hackathons and they say, Elena, I really wish schools were like that, because this is a fun way to learn. I always had it in mind that I really wish one day schools were like hackathons, where they build something that they're really proud of and that makes a difference to the world. And that's how I felt we could bring purpose back into classes. So the framework obviously calls for project-based or problem-based learning. It's a learner-centered approach. We promote sort of digital agency. We show them that you don't have to be just the one to scroll all the way, all day long, but you can actually use technology to build something really great. So the hope is that we can turn passive users into ethical innovators. And of course, very often, or most of the times, we feel there is a need to connect our problems or the problems young people tackle to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and of which there are 17. We focus on different types every year. The popular ones are the ones that are highlighted, and of course, good health and well-being for a lot of young people. When we try to tackle this issue, it's mental health. So they want to see whether technology could actually be used to alleviate some of the mental health issues that they suffer from or their families do. Gender equality is something that we always highlight during International Women's Day, where we run our biggest campaign. Reduced inequalities is another issue. Climate action and education is a really big topic for young people, because they're so bored and fed up, and they're like, oh, Elena, could there be AI systems that could be developed to make education more fun and accessible and interesting with some personalized learning? But also, we're all different learners, they tell me. Some of us are neurodiverse. Some of us are learning through sound, through video, through whatnot. but learning is the same, they tell me. So there are lots of amazing projects that kids themselves build. And it's always great to listen to them, to see what are your suggestions? How can you build something that works for you? And so every year we run a campaign, which is a really big campaign. So we only run this once a year because it's getting bigger and bigger. So last year we had it run in almost 20 countries around the world, I think 19, with about 56 locations. So it's quite a lot to manage, and we're still quite a small team. The winners of this project were two girls from Pakistan. I'm not going to play the video because I know we don't have much time, but I'm happy to share this into with our team, and perhaps Alessandra could share this around, or if there is a way I can put it into some resource pack. I'm very happy to, because it's fantastic to watch two girls who built this in literally a few days, an app which is powered by AI, all related to menopause. And when I asked the girls, how did this come about? One of you is 16, one of you is 19, and menopause is like, you wouldn't be experiencing this early just yet. They said, well, we spoke to our parents, our moms, and we thought we would be tackling period poverty, and information and awareness around period poverty or period in general. And they said, oh no, in Pakistan, we know a lot about period, but menopause is still a taboo. And it would be great to have some more awareness around that. So the girls built this project with moms, being part of the almost like a user group that they interviewed. They interviewed friends of their moms, and they came up with this really incredible project that was judged by lots of judges around the world, and they all thought this was something that was worth winning and showcasing. Just gonna click on the next. Facts of 1.2. Hold on. And I wanted to highlight another project, is because I know Tatiana was meant to be on the call, but of course I don't know. There could be some challenges because she might be tuning in from Ukraine. But this was another winning team project that you're welcome to watch again if you come across this deck. And this is a project that kids in Ukraine who are, I honestly don't know what kind of conditions they're in at the moment. But last year, bomb shelters and whatnot, and they still managed to produce this really cool project where the problem that they were tackling was sign language, and kids struggling to communicate and whatnot. And it's a really, really beautiful project that, again, they built only in 2 days, and it was absolutely incredible. I'm going to try and skip this very quickly as well. So as I mentioned, we run this program once a year. It's super inspiring to see young people actually building and making things and learning about AI from a slightly different perspective, not just, hey, this is Gen AI, but there are so many different facets to AI that we want to highlight. And we kind of do a lot of things that some of the teachers would be scared of, and because a lot of the teachers we have, they're kind of still uncomfortable about teaching AI and whether they're teaching AI in the right way. So we bring a lot of inspiration and learning through this program. It starts in January, and then in February, teachers or other ambassadors run their techathons, we call them. We also have a boot camp where kids are learning from some of the best experts around the world, whether it's Microsoft or Sage or Capgemini. We bring the industry in so that they're learning from people and get mentorship from the people joining from the industry. So there's quite a lot going on in that campaign. And of course, if there are teachers who are interested in joining us, you're very welcome to sign up. But what we built essentially is a one-day program, but it can also be done in 2 or 3 days, depending on how much time you have. But I've seen a teacher do this in 1 day, which is always phenomenal and great to learn from. But it's a really simple 1-day setup where we kind of set the day, set the tone of the day. We learn about, teach them about AI and what's not AI, and how AI is shaping the world. We will always cover fairness and ethics, because this is, in my view, should be embedded into any lessons related to AI, because without ethics, you could be building something that could be quite harmful, but it's always good to understand what harms could be created and how we mitigate those harms. As I mentioned, we always focus on UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we would get the teams to pick their UN goal and decide on why this is important to them. And this is where a lot of discussion happens and debating, because obviously somebody who's passionate about climate might not be wanting to solve for disabilities or something like that. And of course, we then teach them some of the really core fundamentals of AI, where they could actually learn something and build something there and then. And it doesn't really take long. We sometimes use Gen AI tools as well to build for problems that they uncover. Other times, we also have some really, really advanced students who don't want to do Gen AI, but they actually want to get their hands, dirty and just really get into that Python and build something a little bit more complex than that. And the day always ends with the presentation and the showcase of what it is they build, why they're building this, how is this important to the world and to them, but also, what could go wrong with that project and how will they mitigate the risk. At the end of the day, they also get a certificate and they move on to the next phase of that project. But we find this really brings the whole class together, or the whole community, because of course, a lot of the times we also bring mentors into the class, and it turns into this really great community building initiative led by teachers, but also the problems themselves, what students feel are important to solve at that moment in time. And of course, problems in Uzbekistan would be different to problems in the UK, to problems in Italy. Even when we offer climate as a challenge, the kind of climate solutions that come out with would be quite different depending on where they are. And it's always exciting to see that. So the project...
Elena, sorry, can you try to wrap up in a couple of minutes, because we are running a bit late?
Yes, of course. This is actually the last slide. So,
okay,
the project-based learning framework that I just wanted to quickly demystify is where we start with the empathy phase. We want to understand what the problems are and what the needs of the users are. We embed it all into AI ethics, of course, because we want to understand how to account for fairness, safety, and responsibility when we design solutions. We give them plenty of opportunities to ideate with lots of different big ideas, and no idea is, it doesn't really have to be, nothing is stupid, everything is possible. So there's quite a lot of sort of coaching involved in that, and they have time to prototype and even reflect on what it is that they build. So this is really, really important phases of what we have. So this really was the last slide, and if anyone, of course, is interested in getting involved and learning, we train completely for free, and there is an opportunity for you to join next year in 2026. But that's really what we do, and I thought it could be quite interesting for some of you to learn, and happy to answer any questions you might have. So I try to do it really fast, Alessandra.
Thank you, Elena. I would pass the floor now to Tatiana that might address some questions. In the meantime, reading a couple of questions and comments. One is about what ethical consideration should the institution prioritize when integrating AI into programs that influence students' well-being and inclusion? So this is a question from Ilgar. And Ilgar, if you stay until the very end, we will announce also the next session that might include part of the answer to your question. But of course, I leave also Elena to answer to the question. And then there is Igil that is, let's say, highlighting that the combination of project-based learning and ChatGPT, there are some evidence that this is really a good correlation and establishing positive effect. For sure, from your presentation, there is a lot of innovation in your approach. We are probably in a non-formal context of learning, but the use of bootcamp, hackathon, the problem-based approach, these are kind of ingredients that could really offer a context where we can make practice and make experimentation using ChatGPT properly. But Tatiana, I don't know, Igili, if you want to add something in this respect, otherwise I would pass the floor to Tatiana for a question.
Edil, any questions from your side?
Go ahead.
Okay. So thank you very much, Elena, for your intervention, for your great presentation, actually initiative. Ukraine has been participating in Teens in AI for 2 years. It was initiated by the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Digital Transformation. And we were so impressed with the management, with the resources provided, with the approach, because it really inspires students and teachers to integrate AI for well-being, for good. And actually, from what I remember, this initiative was at the UN summit, right, which was AI for Good in 2018. And since then, you are implementing this and inspiring other countries. Thank you very much. So, and from our hands and from our side, we see from inside how it works. And my idea was, and you mentioned it just, that it may be not only in a hackathon as an event, which is done annually, but it may be done on the regular basis in the classroom.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Could you please say a little bit more about the classroom approach?
Yes. So we actually, I don't know whether there are any teachers from Brunei. Tell me if there are any teachers from Brunei. That could be interesting because we trained about 55 teachers in Brunei. It was a project funded by Ministry of Education, Shell, and some Bank of Brunei. So there had to be some funding committed to that, but we trained teachers in something like 70 schools. Brunei is a very small country. So things happened a little bit faster, I guess, there. And we have some teachers who are still based in Brunei, but they are teaching our framework. They call it Innovation Sprint. So every term is about 10 to 12 weeks. They offer a challenge in the beginning of the term. And then they cover design thinking, AI ethics. As the term progresses, they take it just 1 hour of computer science class, and they basically run through the entire framework that we designed. And so they run this sprint 3 times, sometimes twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. And I can tell you the kids that have done this, year on year, their mindset changes. They think differently about problems, and they think differently about AI as well. So we've got some really great success stories from Brunei, but we haven't really repeated that or done it in many other countries because there needs to be an alliance of different companies committed to doing this. And we don't expect teachers to pay or students to pay, but someone else has to. So it almost takes on this really committed approach from at the government level, also supported by private enterprise to kind of ensure that all of the ingredients are there for us to go ahead. I'm hoping something more trainings will happen in Ukraine, by the way, and other countries. We have a few governments we're talking to see, but it's when we talk to governments, it's very slow, very slow. And unfortunately, by now, they already have secured their contracts with big companies like Microsoft, who are really pushing their Gen AI agenda onto schools, onto teachers, which in my view is very dangerous because the systems, again, are not really built with diversity in mind. And so we're being pushed this technology depends whether you're a Google school or Microsoft, and this is going to be embedded into all of your entire workflows without any consideration for risk. So just looking at one of the questions, I definitely, if you are a teacher and you have got a lot of big or small corporates, who are claiming, hey, buy our technology and we're going to do personalized learning for every one of your students. Some of the questions to ask is how safe their data is, how their algorithm was trained, will you ensure that children's data is protected and safe? Because a lot of the enterprises that are pushing this technology, it's really not trained on the kind of data that's going to be protected really safe. There are cybersecurity attacks happening all the time. So I always ask teachers who ask me, Elena, I've got all these companies pitching at me all the time. What do I do? Have that checklist of questions that you would want to ask. And also, I recommend every school to have their generative AI policy as well designed on how teachers can use and not use Gen AI tools if this is what you're going with, but also how students can or cannot use. This is really important and almost fundamental to any school that is going to be adopting those tools that are being pushed at you right now by all of these big corporates, which is not something I ever wanted to see, but it's happening, unfortunately. But Tatiana, of course, it's great to see that Ukraine has participated already twice. So this is a really great testimonial for us to also receive. But of course, I personally think the framework that we have developed should be taught as part of class, not as an extra curriculum. When it's taught as part of your class, this is where you will see the most difference. If it is taught only once a year as a competition, it's aimed to inspire, so kids will definitely leave inspired. But once you integrate it into your computer science classes, or if you don't have a computer science class in your school, maybe maths class or even a science class, because there is a lot of intersection between AI and geography, AI and chemistry, AI and biology. So I always see AI as more related as an interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary subject and not the domain of computer science only.
And social sciences also, yeah.
Yes,
and
philosophy. I mean, ethics and philosophy, PSHE. This is like super connected. Yeah.
And what is it, just I'd like to mention that you also bring beyond methods, beyond framework, beyond resources. You also bring experts into classroom, because these mentors and facilitators, they are real practitioners, those who use AI in their real life. So they inspire and they train kids into these skills. And this link of generation of experienced people and young minds, it's
Exactly.
also so great. Yeah.
Exactly. For me, role models are really important, particularly for girls who were struggling to convert into tech here in the UK. If they see somebody like me who's not technical, I don't really code, I do so many other things, but I don't code. And they hear my story that I'm actually in AI and tech without really having that background. It's inspiring for them to come in and explore, oh, wow, she can do it, I can do it as well. But then, of course, we bring in some really technical people as well from some really big companies like Microsoft, Google, Capgemini, and they have a real a role to play in this, because they're the ones who hopefully one day will interact with these young people when they join the industry. So it's important for them to have that role to inspire that young person, and for the young person to learn from somebody who's already in the industry. So they're not just communicating with the teacher, they're not just communicating with one another or the parent. And many parents, might not be familiar with the tech as we know it, but they're meeting somebody who is from the industry in a company that they want to end up in potentially one day. And it's a really great dynamic that we're developing and creating. That mentorship experience is really valuable for both.
Yeah, and beyond all these practical things, you also have resources, right? You have online resources and trainings, which are some of them available for free, and especially for those teachers who would love to integrate AI into classroom, but they also struggle with this some knowledge. So this is useful for students and for teachers also, and for parents maybe. So
yeah, definitely. So if you go on learn.teensandai.com, and I know my colleague is on the call today, you can have a look at some of the resources. And we've actually just released a new course today, which is completely free, and it's called I think it's Introducing Kids to Machine Learning, which is a bit different to AI, right? And it talks about neural networks, but in a really accessible way. Yeah, exactly. So this is a new course that just got launched. 2 weeks ago, we launched a course on biocomputing as well, which is a really exciting field which intersects with, biology, but also anatomy and AI. Some really cool intersections between science and AI there. We've released a maths course. We're releasing a robotics course very soon. AI courses, AI ethics courses, cybersecurity. So if you have kids who are really interested in cybersecurity, and we can't really be seeing all teachers teaching those subjects, we can take it away from you, because all the courses we build, they're aimed at students. Now, before you ask me, we don't have a course yet for teachers, but we're building guides as to how you can integrate our courses into your curriculum if this is what you want to do. But a lot of courses, majority of the courses on our platform are completely for free. So you can definitely share these with your students, and they can learn. We're using a platform that is fully, safeguarding data protection implemented and whatnot. So it's not our platform, it's somebody else's based in the US, but we've already checked all of their data protection. So we know the courses that are sitting on the platform, it's pretty safe and secure in terms of data protection, because it's so important to us as well. But your kids could be learning about cybersecurity, maths, machine learning, AI, and most of the courses, like I said, completely for free. So please explore. And if there is, particularly kids, we have a specific program aimed at kids in refugee camps or kids from underserved, poor backgrounds, all of those children access all of the courses completely for free, even the paid ones as well. So if you know of any, or maybe your children are from domestic violence, refugee communities or whatnot, just send me an email or a LinkedIn message and we can jump on a call and create a special code just for those kids. We've just given away 2,000 or whatever courses to Tatiana as well for kids in Ukraine. So this is something that we can do and we would be super happy to. Yeah.
Alessandro, thank you very much for inviting Elena to our club.
Yes, it was interesting.
Many participants will benefit from the knowledge, from the resources, from the framework, from the approach of using AI in IBL and PBL, inquiry-based learning and project-based learning. So it's great. Okay, Elena, thank you so much. It was a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you.
And Elena, before you disappear, I want to be sure whether there are participants that would like to address you questions. Otherwise, I would have a question for you, definitely. So let's see if there is any question in the chat. So we were really listening and learning about Elena practices. It's very international, as we are. And as well, let's say, there was a lot of innovation in what Elena was approaching. It's not perhaps a scientific approach, but it's very concrete.
Yeah.
So maybe I can start in the meantime with my questions. So it's quite evident that the internationalization, like your initiative, it helps really to be more aware about diversity, and therefore it's quite, I would say, evident that there is also attention to inclusion, to diversity, and to build on this as something that creates value. And this is quite evident in this respect. My question is actually, if you can give some examples on how the use of generative AI tools, for example, when you design a project-based hackathon or boot camp, how do you put AI in relation to ensure that there is psychological well-being, for example, so there is a sense of being part, of self-worth. So how do you use AI in designing your event?
That's
and for what
question.
purposes?
Yeah, so we obviously are big Gen AI skeptics. I don't know whether you've gathered from my discussion. Sort of, we talk about AI from a much wider lens than just Gen AI. We do allow young people to use generative AI tools. And of course, as long as they can show that there is a purpose to it. So we don't claim that every single problem in the world can be solved using AI, but we specifically pick problems that young people resonate with, that they will find valuable and useful to solve, whether it's related to climate change or well-being, and use generative AI when it's absolutely needed. So I actually learned a few tools from kids themselves. So there is a new tool, a shiny tool in the playground called Bolt New, and it's kind of a prompt engineering way to build a whole project from scratch. So we kind of always tell young people, we actually want you to learn how to think creatively, because we do believe there is a thinking skills gap that's really widening. The more we're using those tools, the less we have to think. So we encourage young people to use less AI tools, but more their brains and their creativity, and actually get together to think and work collectively to build something that's really useful. But they do use those tools for research, for helping them create user interviews, certain steps in design thinking where they can also use this. they help them create, these tools help them create a script. So I've seen some children in hackathons use AI to help them generate script based on the slides they're creating, sometimes even give them tips and ideas on how best to position the slides. So it's definitely, I can see young people are using Gen AI tools, but again, the purpose is there. The end result is we need to build a project that is based on the problem that you're trying to aim and solve. And so it's a very purposeful way of using those tools as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Elena, for this. So, for example, it's not forbidden. It's the freedom to use it for specific. I was in Helsinki for 2 months looking at how they use in the school AI. And this was exactly as you said. There were some guidelines in this respect, and students were free to decide to use or not to use these tools. And this is important but they have to declare if they use it for what. So this is an example just to have more, making more transparent and more clear and purpose-oriented the use of it.
And also not to forget that AI hallucinates and it can give false information. How do we spot?
Of course.
And how do we filter through some of the really nonsense things that it gives us, right? So there needs to be quite a bit of awareness that AI will not give you all of the right answers. How do we spot and make sure? Yeah.
So I think we can go. Thank you, Elena, for participating. Of course, we will follow up with a message where we will include your slide with your permission and other information. So we can, Roberto, start the closing of the event. Of course, we take two different angles. The first one was about the understanding what we know about it in terms of research, which is our light in our understanding. The research is really providing evidence to see, and we explore to see where we are. And we can say at the end of this meetup that we are still at an early stage when we want to correlate the use of generative AI and well-being and inclusion. It seems that there is a big promise of personalization, but it's also something about standardization, which is creating a lot of concern. So we looked into practices where basically we saw how AI has been a subject for learning, but also an opportunity, but not so much pushed in a context of an hackathon and boot camp, for example. So now let's quickly close the event on time with a couple of notes. First of all, I want to reply to Ilgar, where to start from when we want to really go back to the question from Ilgar. What ethical consideration should institutions prioritize? Well, the next meetup, we have already data. Please take note of this data. This is the link already to register, or this is the QR code to quickly and immediately register. I would say, Ilgar, explainability of AI in education is super important. And so we will discuss this with a researcher. Christian Streeck is an international expert in this respect that is setting the ground about the ethics of AI. This is very complex. It's even much more complex than well-being. It's very much linked to a collective responsible use of AI in school. The format is always basically the same. We have a more academic, let's say, lecture to start, to know what the research says. And then we go into a practice or a concrete element. And Ilgar, the second part, it's really focusing on explainable AI. when a school has to select the tools, when a school has to set basic guidelines on the use of AI in teaching and learning, well, this is an important parameter. There are others. So this is the good moment to reflect on this aspect. So let's go to the last slide of today, which is a piece of advice that I found on LinkedIn. We are on LinkedIn. We have ETF as its own channel. And my message is really we have to be faster in learning, but act more slowly. Yes, this is very important. Don't feel under pressure to use AI in your lesson. Our curiosity is good, but before applying to pupils in your classroom, I mean, you have to be a bit confident about what is behind it. So this is really a message. I think it's good when we talk, having talked today about well-being and inclusion. So thank you for participating. As usual, as I said, we are going to send a follow-up message where basically we will include the presentations and other information. I invite Elena and Christina, that I thanks again as a guest speaker of today's meetup, to keep updated the community. To really, if you, Christina, I know that you are publishing a new research paper on this topic, so it's important because we are a community of teachers for teachers, and it's also important to know what the research is bringing as evidence about the benefit, or on the contrary, the difficulties and problems that can introduce. And thank you, Ellen, again and best wishes for all your initiative. So we have a break now for the summer, but we will come back in September. So I look forward to our next meetup and enjoy the summer. Goodbye.